Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for another show in association with Match Bingo. And if you head to 1874.io/matchbingo or scan the QR code on your screen, if you're watching via YouTube, you'll be able to take advantage of Match Bingo. Sign up. That helps us as a channel, and you'll also give yourself a chance of winning a little bit of money between £25 and £250 for just putting £2 on and getting yourself a bingo card around any sport that's on at the moment. So do check out Match Bingo. It does help us as a channel, and I really, really appreciate it. Hello, I'm Dan Bardell, your host for today. Apologies, I went on holiday. Didn't really advertise that I was going on holiday because you shouldn't really do things like that because you're leaving yourself vulnerable if you do. There was some content that went out to mixed reviews whilst I was away that I scheduled, including the podcast that Greg and myself did on Aston Villa and Birmingham City. Quite a lot of you watched it. It didn't go down brilliantly with some, but it went down well with others. And now we'll be back to normal. I'm back from holiday, so you'll see content pretty much every day like we were doing before I went on holiday. Hello, Gig Sharma in the comments. Always nice to see you. Always nice to see names that I recognise in the chat on YouTube. Now, today's video is going to be about pre-season. As I just mentioned, I have been on holiday, but I've still been keeping up to date with what's going on, watching footage, watching the game still at Villa in pre-season. So what I've done is today, quite simply, I've come live to talk about 5 things that I've noticed in pre-season so far, in particular, the tour that Villa have got into America. I seem to have a frog in my throat. Just as I've started this, which is not ideal at all. And I feel very out of practice as well. You give yourself a week off doing something, you feel very rusty when you come back in. Hello, George AVFC. Hello, Ad. And hello, Sean O'Gathlin. I think that's how you say your name, Sean. I might have said it wrong. Apologies if I did. So we've got people joining us live now. I'm just going to, as I say, make my 5 points and then answer any questions that there are at the end or through the show as we go through. I'm probably not going to talk loads about transfers. One, because as ever, there isn't much happening with transfers, and 2, because I'll probably jump on and do a transfer show at some point over the weekend. So if I don't answer your question around transfers, it's just because I'm probably going to do that tomorrow or Sunday. So let's start then with the first thing that I've noticed in pre-season. That is Morgan Rogers looking so sharp. I think we all saw 12 months ago in pre-season that he looked sharp when he came back from pre-season. You could tell he was going to be in for a good season for Villa. You could see that he was going to be effective. You could see there was kind of a confidence to his game and a swagger. And I feel that's like what we're seeing again. Gone up levels again in pre-season. Looks so sharp, striking the ball cleanly, scoring goals, involved in everything good that Villa did across the 2 games in America in the parts that he played. And I just think once again we're seeing that there's going to be an elevation to his game this season. I think that was the main thing that we saw last pre-season, that you got the sense that he was going to start the season with a bit of momentum and that you'd see that elevation. And I think we're seeing that again from Morgan Rogers. I think he just looks so good, and hopefully maybe we'll see him move away from that right-hand side, depending on what happens with incomings and outgoings. You just get the feeling that he's going to get back to playing in a more central area. Morgan Rogers, Emery's going to make him that central number 10 again. Obviously, we've got Marlon, who I'll come on to, who's had a rip-roaring start to pre-season, who can play on the right-hand side now and look very good in pre-season. You just feel that we're going to get more like the Morgan Rogers that we saw in the first half of the season, rather than the one that maybe perhaps tailed off to an extent at the end through not really a lot of fault of his own, played a lot of games, was playing slightly out of position in a different role. I'm really excited because it's that finishing. He just looks that little bit more clinically. There was one criticism that you could label at Morgan last season, aside from maybe the Champions League game against Celtic. You always felt that, especially at the start of the season, he was slow to get off the mark, wasn't he? I think maybe you could level at him about his lack of being clinical in dangerous positions, and he should have had more goals at the start of last season. You just feel from what you've seen so far, he's been working on it. I know that when he was away in the summer with Jacob Ramsey, there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes, still training, still getting that coaching in. Morgan Rogers is ready to hit the ground running this season. You feel, and I'm really excited to see him. I expect him to sign that new contract. I don't think there's going to be any problems at all in terms of Morgan Rogers leaving. Villa want to tie him down. I'm 90% sure that Villa will tie him down. So that's great to hear and great to see, and good to see Villa continuing to reward players. It shows that if you go to the club and you raise your game, you make yourself one of the most important players. Look at the levels in the squad that Morgan Rogers has rose through to arguably become one of Villa's most important players, if not the most important player in Villa's squad. you'll be rewarded. That'll be his, aside from the contract that he signed when he first joined, it'll be his second new contract when he signs that. So it just shows that you're going to get rewarded. You're going to get the pay that's in line with your importance to the team. It gives motivation to the player to keep improving. It gives motivation to those already at the club as well, that if they improve, they'll get rewarded. They'll get that new contract. So I just think he's going to be in for a really, really big season. And my bet is that, I think I remember saying this time last year, I thought he'd get himself into the England squad, and he did. My betting is that at the end of this season, he won't only be in that England squad for the World Cup if he's fit. He'll be in the England team as well. I believe he's that good, and I believe he's going to take his game up levels again. Another Villa podcast, Geek Sharm, says Onana was man of the match against Frankfurt and Rodgers man of the match against St. Louis. That's fair. I wouldn't disagree with that. Agent Cooper says Morgan Rogers against MLS defenders is like prime R9 circa 1997. Absolutely great days. I've got an R9 shirt downstairs in the garage that I should probably get out at some point. And my old friend AVFC Stato is talking about how good he thinks John McGinn looked in that second game out in America as well. And actually Flange 0027 has said Bogard also looking like an Emery fave in the making. I've been saying for months now, I think it's a really interesting pre-season for Bogard. He said Winston Bogard then. That's not right. That's his uncle. It's a really interesting pre-season for Lamar Bogard with, where does he stand? Do Villa sign that right-sided player, that right centre-back / right-back? If they don't, he's got a chance to play an awful lot of football for Villa this season. And he just matured. He just got himself in the team. And then all the players started to come back. We made signings and he found himself out the mix, really. Bogard towards like March onwards, maybe. But it was through no fault of his own, because this was a lad that was seriously improving. And, I think there's a space for him in this squad and in this team this season. I think he'll get a lot of football, especially with the Europa League being part of Villa's campaign as well. So I did always say that I thought he'd be one of the more interesting tales of pre-season. And because we haven't got loads to talk about in terms of incomings, it turns out that actually he is one of the more interesting facets of Villa's pre-season. And Gig Sharma says as well, great cross by Cash for Watkins' goal. Where's that been since he joined? I did a video on Matty Cash that I think came out whilst I was away as well. His game is slightly curtailed with what he's asked to do, but he's definitely got that delivery in his locker. We saw some great left-footed deliveries last season, but that delivery that he put in for Watkins in the last game, that was some cross and some header from Ollie Watkins, and that's who I want to talk about next. Ollie Watkins, as ever, just a ton of noise around him whilst I was away. My understanding is from people I've spoke to around the club that would know is that Villa have absolutely no intention of selling Ollie Watkins whatsoever. Manchester United, because of that, have shifted their thoughts towards Benjamin Sesko. Now, I think they've kind of been given a bit of short shrift with Ollie Watkins. I don't think they're going to be they won't put the money that Villa would need to accept an offer for Ollie Watkins at 29 years of age. Manchester United, they won't do that. They might do it for Sesko, especially if they get some more sales. But I think the fact that they've chosen Sesko apparently has shown that they were given very short shrift by Villa. Villa do not want to sell Ollie Watkins, and rightly so. And Newcastle are going to be linked with Ollie Watkins now because Isak's going to go to Liverpool, of course. It just shows you, if those are the Champions League teams, Newcastle and then Manchester United, who historically have been a massive club, if they're looking for a reliable Premier League goal scorer, someone that they can trust, they look at Ollie Watkins because he just provides you guaranteed goals and guaranteed assists, guaranteed productivity. Shows once again how lucky we are to have Ollie Watkins. I think off the back of maybe a difficult season last season at times, he looks refreshed. His header was a great header, great delivery from Cash, as I say. But Ollie Watkins looks ready to go as well. And he just didn't get that pre-season because of the Euros last time around. I think it hindered him at the start of the season. I think overall, I think it impacted probably his whole first half of the season with him carrying injury as well. He looks injury-free now. He's playing with confidence again. I can just you can sometimes tell by the way a player carries himself, and when I'm watching him in that pre-season, kind of just knowing he's Villa's main man again, kind of feels like a weight's off his shoulders a little bit. I'm no body language expert, as I've said before, but just by watching him, just the way he's carrying himself now, and he's got a couple of goals in pre-season as well, proper strikers goals, I would say as well. Again, my early thoughts is that you're going to be looking at 20 goals for Ollie Watkins in the Premier League this season. He's got to aim to get that, and I believe he's fully capable of doing so. And our fixtures at the start of the season, there's some nice games in there. There's plenty of decent home games as well. He's the main man, Ollie Watkins, again. he's going to score goals. He's going to start this season on fire. That's my prediction. So good to see him doing the business in pre-season. I always say pre-season results mean absolutely nothing, but what you see from individual players, it does. And what I've seen from Rodgers so far and what I'm seeing from Ollie Watkins has got me excited. There's no real alternative to him. Marlon's the next player I'm going to talk about, who just looks so sharp. Played one game on the wing and one game up front. Redmond would have been on this tour, I've been told, but he's not fit. If he'd have been fit, he'd have been there and he'd have been taking part. And it was good to see some of the youngsters get a run out in the last game as well. But that showed that at the moment, as it stands with the squad, Marlon is Villa's deputy striker, whilst also being able to play on the right. Now, he just looks absolutely incredible, doesn't he? Everyone knows how much I rate him. I've spoke all through last season, the second half of the season, about how unfortunate I thought he was and how he always just seemed to make an impact or do something when he was on the pitch. This is a player that I believe is going to push himself to the front of the queue to be in the team at the start of the season. He just looks so sharp, looks ideal for what Emery wants to do, whether it's hugging the touchline wide on the right or coming in. I think he'll get on the end of things as well. We maybe haven't seen that yet in pre-season. He's been more of a facilitator. I thought his clever timing of the pass for Rodgers in the last game was very telling as well. But this is a player that's not only going to provide goals for Villa, I believe, on that right-hand side. I think he's going to score a lot of goals. I think Trezeguet at the back post. Another prediction. I don't know why I'm making so many predictions in this show. Another prediction I'm going to make is that Marlon at the back post becomes a thing this season. I think he's going to be such a big player for us. I like everything I see from him, even in both these pre-season friendlies. Again, I've seen so much stuff that I like from the lad. He's going to be a huge, huge player for Villa. I'm not going to say he's going to be like a new signing because he was there anyway. But I honestly believe he's going to be a huge player for Villa this season. And when the numbers are all fully confirmed, going on the back of my shirt. That's the early statement that I'm going to make. I'm going to get Marlon on my shirt when I get round to buying one, because I honestly believe he's going to have a huge season for the club. Let me just dip into the comments again before I move on to my final 2 points. Agent Cooper agrees with me, says Watkins looked tired and injured after the Euros last summer and joining up late for Villa's pre-season a year ago. This summer he looks absolutely fit as a fiddle. What an athletic beast he is at 29. Bloody excellent summary there. Agent Cooper probably summed it up better than me. So well done to you. Although don't be too good, because then people might not watch because they won't think I'm great. What else have we got? Daniel Savage, isn't it great when we say who goes and clubs just can't pick our best when they want? No one's come in with any offers that are anywhere near what Villa would want for players in this summer. In fact, I'd say some of the work that's gone on has been a little bit insulting, and I'm glad to see, as I say, the club giving short shrift to those kind of things from Manchester United. I'll be back on the airwaves with Flex on Tuesday, and I'll tell you what, I can't wait to have an argument with him about Manchester United and Villa. I'm really looking forward to that after a few weeks off. John Lukeman says Watkins is looking sharp but still struggles when he's got too much time to think about it. I think he is very much a rhythmic player, and I do think the best kind of finishing in his Arsenal does come when he doesn't have time. I would agree with that. This is a striker that scored all types of finishes, has got better with his head over the years as well. For me, still my centre forward, still wouldn't swap him. Ollie Watkins is the man to lead the line for Villa. Sean O'Gathlin says Watkins is irreplaceable. Other clubs know this. His status makes him top of the transfer news every season. Like I said at the start, there's been so much noise around Ollie Watkins, too much noise, but he's happy at Villa. Villa are happy to have him, is the noise that's coming out the club. Sean O'Gathlin again, Marlon is a giant ready to wake up. Honestly, I'm so excited for him this season. He's probably the thing that I'm most excited about this season so far, Marlon. I'm ready to get excited about something else, don't get me wrong, but I'm so excited about Daniel Marlon. Let me move on to my next point now. Emiliano Buendia, getting minutes back in the first team. Now, had we qualified for the Champions League, I'm not sure Buendia would be a viable option. But with us being in the Europa League, he seems to be in and around the squad again. I know he's got a great affinity for the club, and his preference would be to stay at the club. Has never really agitated to leave. It was just the way it went in January last season, and that Leverkusen move came around very quickly. This is a player that wants to be at Villa and has been a real victim of circumstance, Emiliano Buendia, that the club really accelerated in the time he was out injured, but he would have been part of that acceleration had he not got that horrific injury at the back end of the season, at the start of the season before last. And I just think, we've got difficulties in this squad at the moment. I did a tweet earlier saying, Liverpool and Arsenal have got 15, 16-year-olds that are coming into pre-season and really making a shout for a place among the first team squad this season. Nwaneri and Reece Skelly did that for Arsenal last season as well. But, players that suddenly just come in and they form part of the squad straight away. In a difficult summer for Villa, Villa almost need people to come from the shadows and make a statement and force themselves into the squad and give the manager another viable option. People have forgotten about Buendia a little bit, and I'm probably guilty of this as well. But whilst it is this difficult summer and we don't have much room to manoeuvre, can he play himself in? Now, the fact that he's so heavily involved tells me that he can. If he can get himself right, get himself sharp. I'm not saying this guy's coming in and he's going to start every game, but I think he becomes a viable option for Villa and for Emery. Emery likes Buendia. I don't think he's a player that he dislikes or has fell out of love with. It's just difficult last season because Villa had accelerated. Rodgers was playing predominantly as a central 10 at that point and in the first half of the season. And then, of course, Asensio and Rashford came and it did deem him surplus. Asensio and Rashford aren't coming in this summer. So there's a chance for Buendia. There's a good player there. I always like his positivity. I always like the fact that he guns to play the ball forward. He's not afraid of stat padding. And, if he gives the ball away, he gives the ball away because he's trying to make stuff happen. He's trying to play forwards. I still think there's something there. I wouldn't rule out there's been something there for Emi Buendia and Villa this season, especially if we're not massively active in the transfer market, which at the moment it doesn't look like we will be until the back end of August. At the start of this season, he's going to be in and around he's going to be on the bench at the very least at the moment. You're picking your 20 players for Villa at the moment. Emi Buendia is in there. All it takes is a couple of injuries as someone to get sent off at the start of this season, come off the bench and make an impact. He's got a chance. And whilst he's still an Aston Villa player, everyone needs to get behind him. And I think he's still got a chance, Emi Buendia, to do something here for Villa this season. So let's say if he stays, I'd expect him to get football in the Europa League and in the early rounds of the Carabao Cup as well. I've just got a sneaky feeling there's a chance for Emi Buendia. So let's see what happens with that. That's one definitely to keep our eye on. Addy's talking about Rowe and Patterson. They're looking promising. Can see them in the Euro squad for homegrown status. They wouldn't have to be registered because they count as under 21 club trained players. But I take your point of what you're saying. Jasper says I liked Buendia off the left. Yep. I'd agree with that. I think he had some good games under Emery on the left from what I remember in Emery's kind of first half a season. I do remember him playing there and doing it to decent effect. Flange says MEB looks really happy in pre-season to have been thinking there's a chance as well. And then Agent Cooper says Buendia gets knocked off the ball far too easily in the Prem, especially away at the physical sides like Palace or Newcastle. But at home in the Europa League, he could be a diamond in the rough. I think, with all those comments taken in, like I say, there's a chance something could happen here with Buendia and Aston Villa this season. And I hope he does, because he deserves a bit of happiness and he deserves a bit of luck after what happened to him when he was absolutely flying in Emery's first pre-season. What was my last point? I've completely forgotten. Yes, Emiliano Martinez, back in goal for Villa now. Everyone will know I've been peddling all summer that he was more out than in. 70-30, I said at one point, chances of him leaving Aston Villa. Things change in football. Football moves fast, or in some cases, it moves slow and not the way that players want it to. And I think it's fair to say at the moment that the summer has not gone the way that Emiliano Martinez expected it to, or maybe the way that a lot of other people at the club expected it to as well. He's here. He's playing in pre-season. And I would suggest in August now, the closer we get to the start of the season, obviously he can't play at the start of the season anyway, but the closer we get to the start of the season and he's still here, every day there's more chance of him staying. I don't think the move that he was made, not agitating for, but maybe was open to and the club were open to, it doesn't look like that's there at the moment. The two big drivers in that were Atletico Madrid and Manchester United. Now, Atleti haven't moved a goalkeeper on, haven't moved Oblak on. He's still their goalkeeper. If that didn't happen, then Emiliano Martinez was never going to go there. That would have been a great move for him, working under Simeone. That would have been box office. But that one looks a million miles off. Chevalier is going to PSG, as AVP has just pointed out as well. That was the goalkeeper that Villa were heavily linked with. I have heard murmurs around the Sporting goalkeeper as well, but I'd need to validate that for sure. And I just think Manchester United, they're not, when Manchester United linked with Villa players, I said this a little bit with Watkins earlier, they're just not serious. There was a great article in the Telegraph from Matt Law kind of saying, if Manchester United want Watkins, be serious. And they weren't serious. Loan offers for Emiliano Martinez and all this stuff that they're doing. And I believe certain journalists have been fed a little bit from Manchester United as well. Journalists I like and journalists I've worked with, I believe they've been fed from Manchester United a little bit. But trying to get Emi Martinez on loan is just a joke. And it was good to see him out there wearing a Villa shirt again. He kind of posted about it on Instagram. I think he's been a little bit coy on Instagram at the moment, maybe not sure of the reception, maybe thinking that people were thinking he wanted to leave or whatever. Now, if he stays, Emi Martinez will be fully committed to Villa and give Villa his best. He's got a genuine affection for the club. I don't think anyone could ever deny that. Like I say, I think both sides were open to something happening, and it just hasn't materialised. So if we start the season with Emi Martinez, or end the transfer window with Emi Martinez still as our goalkeeper, that's great news for me. I never wanted him to go anyway. So to have one of the best goalkeepers in the world at Villa Park next season, hopefully, a break and a pre-season, coming back and having a fresh season will do him good, because he wasn't at his best last season, made some mistakes, but he's still a top goalkeeper. Villa aren't going to get a better goalkeeper in than Emi Martinez. So I think it's not a big statement, but it's a big thing if Emi Martinez stays, and I, for one, certainly hope he does. So they're the 5 conclusions that I've come up with from pre-season so far. I don't think I'm reinventing the wheel with anything that I've come up with there, but they were just the 5 things that I've noticed in pre-season so far. So a few people have let me know their thoughts as we've gone through, and I've enjoyed being back, kind of just feeding myself back in a little bit easily. Didn't want to do anything too strenuous first pod back, but yeah, there's going to be plenty more content coming up across the next week, across the season, of course, as well. All the regular shows. We'll have a Stato show as well. We'll be bringing that back, the weekly podcast with Greg every Monday. We'll have previews, we'll have reviews, maybe throw in some tactical stuff as well with Dave Reid, like we did the other day as well. And I'll try not to put 12 players on the pitch as well. So yeah, there's going to be plenty upcoming, basically. And at some point, Villa will make a couple of signings, and we'll get to do a show on signings as well. So that will be fun, because I've forgotten what that's like, to be honest, doing proper shows on big signings. Obviously, we've signed a backup goalkeeper, but I think we can all agree that I didn't know too much about him, so it was going to be very difficult to do a show on just that. But before I go, people are asking about Ramsey in the comments. If someone hits the price for Ramsey, I don't believe it's like certain players are not for sale. Like Rodgers is not for sale by the sounds of things. I think someone hits the price with Ramsey, Villa would have to consider it, because he's homegrown and it's pure profit, and it would help Villa generally across the next few years if they were to do that. But I don't see West Ham being the kind of move that would interest him. Some of the clubs we've heard previously linked with Ramsey, Newcastle, Tottenham, they're very different moves, maybe moves that would appeal. I wouldn't advise any footballer to go to West Ham at the moment. They're my big call to go down. As it stands, I'd be worried if I was a West Ham fan. I don't see Jacob Ramsey ending up at West Ham. I've been wrong before, been wrong about lots of things before, but I just don't see Ramsey going to West Ham. I don't see that as being a go. They might be interested. Obviously, they've had the news with Paquetá. He's has been cleared, so he's free to play. They'll know they've got him for the whole season, which they didn't know a week or so ago. But no, Ramsey to West Ham, not for me. I don't feel he'd be a player that would want to go there. I don't think that would be a good move for him, in all honesty, either. But like I say, if someone hit the price, Villa would be open to it. So I'm going to go. It's Friday night. I'll let you all get back to your Friday nights. Thank you ever so much to those that have joined me. It's good to be back. Good to see the regulars in there again. Do give us a like and leave us a comment with your thoughts on pre-season so far. Do let us know what you're thinking. Cher would love it. What was a Blues pod back to talking about Villa? I hope that's very tongue-in-cheek, because you could do just one video out of thousands. I've done so many pods and shows. It was my idea. I wanted to do it. I thought it was interesting. I knew Greg was the guy to do that kind of show. So, yeah, one show mentioning Blues. Not going to happen again. I thought it was an interesting topic, and I wanted to explore it. So I did it, basically. So thank you again for those that have joined live. I do appreciate it. Subscribe with your post notifications on. That's absolutely massive for us. If you can do that, let's get those numbers up. I think we're limping towards 28,000 subscribers now. If we can get there sooner rather than later, that would be great. On Apple and Spotify, if you could leave us a review, leave us a comment, and leave us 5 stars if you're enjoying it, that would be absolutely brilliant. I'm glad to be back. I had a good holiday, but I'm glad to be on the pods again. So watch out for the content coming the rest of the time. If you are following us on socials or following me on socials, you'll know exactly when that content's coming, because I always post it when it's out. Take care. Have a good weekend. I'll be on here again at some point over the weekend, whether that's tomorrow or Sunday. Take care. And as always, up the Villa.